Pleasant good morning, Virgin Islands, and happy Paradise Tuesday. And this beautiful, bright, sunny, the first Tuesday of April here in Santa Cruz. Today is April 7th, 2026. Once again, welcome to At the Table with Crucian Educator. This is yours truly, Verdell Peterson. It's a pleasure and an honor to serve as the host for this 1 hour radio talk show. Normally it begins at 8. Today we are running late, but nonetheless we are here. Every disappointment is an appointment. So we're here, and once again, welcome to At the Table with Crucian Educator. I like to focus on topics such as constitutional development, governance, civics, Virgin Islands history, culture, and also an education. So I avoid topics such as religion, political ideologies, mythology, conspiracy theories, and very controversial topics. But everyone is entitled to an opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. So I focus a lot on the process, and my mission and passion is to educate, enlighten, and inspire minds. It's a calling show. However, I'm expecting a guest to call in. Hopefully, the guest will call in within the next 5 minutes. We began the show at approximately 8:35. Normally, we'll start at 8. So we'll go until about 9:35. The topics, I have 3 prepared questions that I have been asking all guests to the show. And anyone who wishes to call in and respond to these questions, you're welcome to do so. Let's see, I have the questions here, and I will present them to you while we await the guest. Okay, here are 3 prepared questions. Anybody interested in responding to these questions? Number 1, what role are you serving in our community, and what ideas could you offer to enhance Virgin Islands pride, enrich history, promote culture, and in general make the U.S. Virgin Islands a better place? Second question, how would you describe the state of the territory? And what do you believe are the 5 most important issues that must be addressed by the Virgin Islands government? Number 3, do you support the creation of a constitution for the U.S. Virgin Islands to replace the revised Organic Act of 1954? And what recommendations do you have to ensure the success of the 6th Virgin Islands Constitutional Convention? If you would like to respond to any of those questions, feel free to call in. The numbers are 340-773-0390 and 340-773-0490. As I said, I'm anticipating a calling guest. In the meantime, I will just go to a topic related to the questions, of course. But I did some research. I saw that the requirements for running for delegate to House of Representatives from the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands involve a specific link of inhabitancy, whereas to run for the delegate to House of Representatives from the U.S. Virgin Islands, there is no specific time frame how long you have to be an inhabitant. It just said be an inhabitant. So to be eligible to run for House of Representatives, you have to be an inhabitant of the U.S. Virgin Islands, but the law is not specific. It is not clear how long you have to be an inhabitant. Now, I've been listening to some members of the Board of Elections, and they claim that the requirements to run for delegate to House of Representatives are based on the U.S. Constitution. Well, I took a closer look at the U.S. Constitution, and it doesn't say anything about the running for delegate to House of Representatives. So I don't know how that claim came about, but I would like to read to you. As you know, this is an election season, an election cycle. In the first Tuesday of November of 2026 this year, we're anticipating that there will be a general election. Before a general election comes a primary election. I don't have much information about the primary election, but at least we can expect a general election in November. And we could expect on the ballot to have several categories or races. The first one, well, not necessarily in this order, but usually at the top of the general election ballot, you will have the delegate to House of Representative candidates. This year, it may be on a separate ballot because there's a federal law that requires a separate ballot for delegate to House of Representatives. In the past, it has been the first position, and then came the at-large seat for Senate at-large seat. This time we have a gubernatorial race. Last year, well, not last year, the last general election, 2024, there was no gubernatorial race. But this year, in 2026, there will be. So we're going to have that category, a gubernatorial team, candidates running as a team for governor and for lieutenant governor. And also, of course, senators, candidates for district senators from each district. There are two districts, St. Thomas, St. John district, which of course include residents of Watt Island as well, and the district of St. Croix. So there are two voting districts. Each district gets to elect 7 district senators from the prospective district. Both districts get to elect a senator at large. Then you have the 2 boards, elected boards, for members of the Board of Elections and members of the Board of Education. Well, going back, as I said, there's a possibility that this time you may have 2 separate ballots. One ballot will have all the different races except for delegate to House of Representatives. That may be on a separate ballot. We'll see what happens. To the best of my knowledge, it has never been practiced. It has never occurred. But the U.S. Code does have the language in there requiring a separate ballot. Virgin Islands law doesn't say anything about a separate ballot. The Revised Organic Act doesn't say anything about a separate ballot, but the U.S. Code does. And I don't have the specific number for the code, but what I have in front of me is the U.S. Constitution. And I listened to a Board of Election member making a claim that the requirements to run for delegate to House of Representatives is in the U.S. Constitution. Well, I have the U.S. Constitution in front of me. I would say, read to exceed. Facts can be verified. Anybody could, you can opine, you could speculate, you can guess, you could theorize, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but facts can be verified. And according to the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, I am reading it. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualifications required for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. No person shall be a representative who shall not have attained to the age of 25 years and been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of that state in which he shall be chosen. Well, this is from the U.S. Constitution. It doesn't say anything about delegate to House of Representatives. It's talking about the voting members of Congress, which you have two groups. Excuse me. Every state, and there are 50 states in the United States of America. Every state elect 2 state senators, regardless of the population. However, every state can elect a certain number of representatives to the House based on the population, not necessarily the size of the state, but usually the bigger the state, the more people live in there. Makes sense, right? So a state like Texas will have more representatives than a state like Delaware or Rhode Island. California will have more representatives than Florida. Okay, it's based on the population. For every state, you have different districts in the states. So the representative represents a district. I don't know. I can't give you the exact number for each state, but that is something you can go and research and find out how many representatives for each state. But perhaps one state may have only one, and one may have four, depending on how many districts. And again, the district depend on the population size. Every year, every census year, every 10 years rather, they are reapportioned based on the districts. How many districts? So they can change the district can change. We don't do that here. We only elect a delegate, one person, a delegate to House of Representatives. That person has to be just like with the U.S. Constitution, attained to the age of 25 years, have been a citizen of the United States 7 years at least. Okay? So if you're a naturalized for only 2 years, you can't run for delegate for House of Representative, nor representative from a state. You have to be naturalized for at least 7 years. All right? Now, these qualifications here in the U.S. Constitution are for voting members of Congress. The qualifications are the same as far as an age of 25 years, at least a citizen for 7 years. However, how long the person is an inhabitant is going to vary from state to state or from territory to territory if it's a delegate. No. I went and I researched and I found the information for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Okay? So let me go to that. What I found out. I had it posted. Let's see. Okay, I posted it. And Facebook. Okay, while I look for that, if you wish to just pose your questions online, you could go to the WSTX Facebook page and respond to the questions if you have any inquiry. I also have this show recorded and posted on my Facebook group, Virgin Islands Affairs Forum. If you wish to virtually immerse yourself in the political, historical, educational, cultural, and social affairs of the Virgin Islands of the United States, you may join my Facebook group, Virgin Islands Affairs Forum. There also you can find information pertinent to the topics being discussed here on the show, and you can give your input there as well. Okay, well, I don't see it. I posted it on Facebook, and okay, let's see now. Let's see. I'm gonna go back to it then. Uh, what? No, wait. How long does a candidate for delegate to House of Representative from Norton, Mariana be an inhabitant. Okay, when I look at that, for the US Virgin Islands, it doesn't specify how long. So I'm looking it up. Okay, it says here, okay, wait a minute. I'm not finding it. Earlier I found it. Let's see. Okay, I found it. A candidate for the House of Representatives shall be qualified to vote in the Commonwealth at least 21 years of age. No, there'll be at least 25 according to federal law. But here it says 21, and it have to be at least 3 years domiciliary of the Commonwealth for at least 3 years immediately preceding the date on which a representative would take office. So 3 years. The US Virgin Islands doesn't say any amount of years. But wouldn't it make sense if you're going to be representing us in Congress as our delegate to House of Representatives, shouldn't you be a long-time resident of the US Virgin Islands? How would you know what are the affairs of the US Virgin Islands if you haven't been living here? If you just come a year ago, just 1 year ago, I have not participated in any community events or any cultural events, and you just arrived a year ago and get your name put on a ballot, how could you represent the people who've been here, living here, and know all the issues, but you're not familiar with the issues? So I believe that matter needs to be clarified before the next election, which is in November. Now, I'm going to look up for Puerto Rico. For Puerto Rico, that position is known as Residence Commission. And it's the same requirement in terms of at least 25 years, at least a citizen for 7 years, a citizen of the United States. So, but I'm going to look it up. How long a resident commissioner of Puerto Rico be a resident before running for the position Okay, so let's see what happens with Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico says there is no specific minimum duration of residency required immediately prior to running for the position of resident commissioner of Puerto Rico. All right. According to federal law, candidates must be a bona fide citizen, of Puerto Rico, but there's no set number of years, such as 5 or 10 years residence requirement. Okay, the same thing I said, the person have to be at least 25 years old. Instead of 2 years, like the delegate to House of Representatives here from the U.S. Virgin Islands, the term is 4 years for residence commission. All right. And role, serve as a non-voting member of the U.S. House of Representatives with the right to speak and participate in committee votes. Essentially, a person must be an established resident, bona fide. In other words, you can't just come a year and establish how you are not paying, you don't pay property taxes, you don't pay any kind of taxes. So that word bona fide resident, rather than a temporary visitor, that's key. Can't be somebody you would come down for a year and say you're gonna run, and then after the election you go back if you didn't win. It's somebody that here to stay, not to come and go. Again, essentially, this is for residence commissioner from Puerto Rico. But I'm going to try to get the information for Northern Mariana. I mean, for American Samoa. Essentially, a candidate must be an established resident, bona fide, rather than a temporary visitor. But the law does not define this by a set number of years, according to the legal definitions. Okay. Now, let's see about Northern Mariana Island. How long does a candidate to delegate to House of Representatives be a resident from American Samoa? Because American Samoa is an unincorporated territory of the United States. So we go to search. All right, turn to AI. The candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives delegate from American Samoa must be an inhabitant of the territory with specific requirements often including being a U.S. citizen or national. So you could either be one. You don't have to be a citizen to run. See why it's important. Reading is critical because everybody who is born in this island, in any other U.S. Virgin Islands, is a natural born U.S. citizen. You are a citizen at birth of the United States. However, persons born in American Samoa are not citizens of the United States at birth. They are U.S. nationals. See, again, but they have to be a bona fide resident. But unlike the gubernatorial requirement, there is no strictly defined minimum number of years of residency required in the general election. It just says must be an inhabitant of the territory of American Samoa. So I have a question. Should our legislature pass a specific time of residency to run for delegate to House of Representatives? That is a question I think is important because it has created confusion in the past. And when you have these laws that's ambiguous and not clear, you need to be as specific as possible. The language needs to be precise. Well, that's just my thought on that. But anybody have a different opinion, they're free to call and express their opinion. But again, going back to the PPA question, that was just one question I threw out there for anybody interested in responding to that because it's a concern of mine. I like precise language. That is why I have remained an advocate for us getting a sixth constitutional convention and getting a document from this convention be ratified. But it's a process. And I've explained the process numerous times. For more information, you can get a copy of the Public Law 94-854 that pertains to us establishing constitutional conventions. The process is outlined there. In a nutshell, the convention is authorized by federal law and also by local law to draft a constitution. It's a draft, it's not our constitution. It can only become an official constitution once it's ratified by the people. So there's a process. The law has already been established for a sixth constitutional convention. They were given a specific timeline when it was to be completed. Now that's up in the air. I don't know exactly. I try to speak on what I am certain of and what I'm not sure of. I will let you know. I cannot give you no specific date. All I know is the timeline that was originally established has been extended. When exactly the sixth constitutional convention needs to complete the draft, I don't know. If anyone have the answer to these questions, please free to call in. Nonetheless, the sixth constitutional convention has to draft a document which is based on the process that I recall, adopted by the convention. So they have to take a vote. Whether they're going to accept this final draft, yay or nay. If it's accepted, you need a certain number of votes. Again, I'm not going to say anything unless I'm 100% certain, but you have 15 delegates to the sixth constitutional convention. How many of them are required to adopt the draft? A question that needs to be answered. I guess a member of the sixth constitutional convention could call in and provide the answer if listening. but you need a certain number. You have 15 elected delegates. Once that draft is adopted, it is sent to the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Our current governor is the Honorable Albert Bryan Jr. He is not going to be governor after 2026. So, who will be the 10th elected governor? That depends on the number of people that go out to vote, who actually participate. Majority rules. So, all of you who are registered voters, you have an opportunity to decide who will be the 10th elected governor. And that 10th elected governor will be the one who will receive the document from the 6th Constitutional Convention. In the past, what has happened is the governor and his cabinet members, specifically the AG, will review the document. They are not, the governor is not required to approve or disapprove the document, but can make comments. In other words, that governor doesn't have to rubber stamp it and say, fine, I love it, it's great, send it off. That governor could put comments that I think it's problematic. I think there might be some constitutional violation. I believe the Congress may not approve it. The governor can make comments like that. He doesn't have to, he or she doesn't have to rubber stamp it and say, just, hey, here's my signature and submit it to the president. Who would the president be? We don't know. None of us knows the future. I get to just tell you what's written on paper right now. You can go and verify for yourself what the process is. As far as I know, it hasn't changed. The law is still in place, the process, how it's supposed to happen. Once the governor submits the draft to the President of the United States, the President of the United States have his legal team look at it, but the President doesn't approve or disapprove. Same thing like the governor. The president doesn't have to rubber stamp it and pass it on to Congress, which is what happened the last time. With the 5th Constitutional Convention, it was not approved by Governor John P. Young. He didn't approve it, but he had no choice. He had to pass it on. It was not approved by the U.S. Justice Department for President Obama either. But they had no choice. They passed it on to Congress. Congress approves the document. It doesn't say anything about disapproving the document. It says approves the document. Congress have the authority to approve the document as is or to modify it. The last time Congress chose to not approve the document, the 5th constitutional draft, but to send it back to the territory. And the territory had a chance, the 5th Constitutional Convention had a chance to reconvene and to reconsider 9 areas of concerns that were raised by the U.S. Justice Department. One being, you have to be a native who are ancestral native of the Virgin Islands to be eligible to run for governor. That was a concern. Because as you know, we have had governors, lieutenant governors who were not natives of the US Virgin Islands. So that was problematic. Another concern was allowing for ancestral native Virgin Islanders to be exempted from paying property taxes. Well, that was a violation of the 14th Amendment. Everybody's equal under the law. All citizens, if you're required to pay property taxes, you can be exempted because one of your ancestors was born here sometime in 1932. Just because one of your ancestors in 1932 was born here or was an inhabitant at the time in 1932, that now, years later and in 2026, because of that fact of birth, you'll be eligible to not pay property taxes. That's not going to happen under the US flag. Doesn't happen. Every citizen is equal under the law. Well, we're going to wrap up now. And thanks for those of you who have been listening. I hope that you are a registered voter if you're eligible. If you are not registered, I urge you to go and register to vote. If you're a registered voter, but you're not sure of your status, whether you are inactive or active, if you did not participate in the last two general elections, you're an inactive registered voter. I could tell you off the bat. If you want to change your status, go check with the Office of the Virgin Islands Election System and verify your information. Make sure you are still eligible to vote, because sometimes a person's eligibility can be revoked. If you're incarcerated, obviously you cannot vote. If you're incarcerated, you're being convicted and you're serving your sentence in jail, that means you're incarcerated. You can't vote. Now, once you're out of jail, you have completed your sentence, your civil rights could be restored and you could be eligible to vote. But you have to check. Now, you also have to check too if you're considering running for office. I'm going to put it plainly, bluntly. You could be a felon and run for governor. Okay? You could be a felon and run for delegate to House of Representatives. You could be a felon and run for Board of Education or Board of Elections. But you cannot be a felon unless pardoned and run to be a senator of the Virgin Islands legislature. The laws are there, it's on the book. You're not sure of the election laws, you have any questions concerning election, I urge you to call the Virgin Islands election system, or you can go to vivote.gov. Get the information, get it from an accurate, reliable, credible source. Don't go by feelings, suspicions, hearsay, conspiracy theories. No, facts can be verified. So once again, thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll be back here again next Tuesday. Live, listen, learn, love, and levitate.